Sitting atop a vast ocean of oil and gas, New Mexico faces a difficult challenge in combating climate change. According to the Common Cause report from 2017 to 2020, the oil and gas lobbies in New Mexico spent over $11.5 million on political activities. This surpassed spending from huge lobbies like real estate, tobacco, and the pharmaceutical industry. With money like this filling the political coffers, it makes sense to watch as year by year environmental policies face sharp opposition. Pro-environmental legislators and activist groups face an uphill battle against this industry, but it's a challenge they're taking on with great dedication. While the last session saw some progress in areas like community solar and economic task forces, sweeping changes that could have helped avert the coming climate disaster were hampered or stopped altogether. In this video, we'll focus on two such bills: House Bill Number 9 and Senate Joint Resolution 3. Senate Joint Resolution 3, or the Green Amendment, was co-sponsored by Senators William Soules, Joanne J. Ferrari, and Harold Pope Jr. The resolution was introduced by Senator Antoinette Sedillo Lopez, a self-proclaimed proponent for environmental protections at the state level.
This amendment does is it puts it in the Bill of Rights. So it is a right of the people to clean air, land, and water, and cultural rights too. We included that because this is New Mexico and we didn't want to have like a Bears Ears situation. We wanted to protect Chaco. We wanted those kinds of protections. And we put it in the Bill of Rights. And then we also included language that would specifically reverse that case, saying that the legislature has a trustee relationship with our air, land, water, flora, fauna, soil, so it would put an obligation on the legislature to protect our natural resources in the state.
The Green Amendment would replace the existing Article 20, Section 21 of the New Mexico Constitution, which states that, quote, "The protection of the state's beautiful and healthful environment is hereby declared to be of fundamental importance to the public interest, health, safety, and the general welfare." The Green Amendment, on the other hand, quote, "provides the people of the state with environmental rights, including the right to a clean and healthy environment and the right to the preservation of the environment." Artemisio Romero y Carver, a representative of Youth United for Climate Crisis Action, or YUCCA, says this is an important difference.
But folks have argued that that constitutes something close to self-executing environmental rights in the state constitution. It doesn't. Right. If you want an example, you're not going to be able to launch a suit in that way, citing that in the same way. Or if you try to, there's been attempts. They're not looked at necessarily self-executing, and they put the onus of responsibility entirely on the legislature, right? Article 21.
The bill, which would have been crucial to the protection of New Mexico's environment, died in committee. Senator Harold Pope Jr. explained to us why so many of these bills face pushback.
I just think it's really tough to pass. And a lot of it is because we're just so reliant on oil and gas revenue in the state in general, right? So I think folks that realize that it's not only unstable and just the boom and bust cycles and our reliance on that money, they're still very nervous about how we approach it because we rely on all that money, right? And then you got folks that are, I think, don't have the concern on the environment, our air, land, and water, and are fine with the status quo. So it's trying to, get past those barriers to make these changes. Specifically when it comes to the Green Amendment, I think there's just a lot of concern within our legislature that doing that and putting that on the Constitution, what does that do to oil and gas? Does that really limit what they can do? Are there going to be lawsuits? And what happens to the money?
The second bill, the Climate Solutions Act, would have also helped to effect change. The bill would create a list of criteria for the state to meet with the goal of having net zero carbon emissions by the year 2050. In the aid of this goal, the act would create task forces to research and monitor oil and gas operations and their effects on marginalized groups, including Native peoples, the youth, and working class communities.
It is definitely a lot more diverse than some of the task force we've seen proposed for this issue, and that's really valuable. It includes Indigenous consultation. We worked hard, and the sponsors agreed to include youth as a disproportionately impacted group, and so it does seek to bring in disproportionately impacted groups into that task force.
In order to understand the importance of the bill, we have to look at the effects of oil and gas operations, specifically fracking, on the people of New Mexico. Fracking is the process of drilling into the ground and pumping a high-pressure mixture of water, chemicals, and sand deep into the earth. The high-pressure shot into the rock creates fractures deep underground, releasing the gas inside to be collected above ground. Fracking uses an incredible amount of water, and in the process creates a byproduct called produced water. Produced water is full of varying degrees of dangerous chemicals that can contaminate water sources around the fracking area and destroy local ecosystems. Communities that border fracking sites have been labeled, quote, sacrifice zones by environmental activists. Sacrifice zones are for a large part populated by impoverished minority communities.
If you look at it, like the Permian Basin, where the produced water is being spilled on the soil with no consequence, that's 57% Hispanics live there. And some legislators have said that's just a waste zone.
Those are the communities whose rights are being violated, right? It's indigenous children that are being forced to breathe dirty air in New Mexico, or Latinx or Black children nationally, especially, right? Those are the three groups. I'm a member of one of those groups as a Latina person. And those are the demographics that are having their rights violated.
The Climate Solutions Act, just like the Green Amendment, was not passed. Once again, meaningful change was stopped in its tracks. With the outcome of Citizens United versus FEC in 2010, large industries such as oil and gas have near unlimited spending power in influencing the outcome of our elections and our legislation. With the youth facing such a daunting task and such well-funded opposition, it would make sense to lose hope. However, according to Artemisio and Senator Pope Jr., we are not alone in this fight.
And me, as a person that's 46 years old, we have not left this earth and this environment in a good place for future generations. We just haven't. So I applaud the young folks now that are stepping up, because unfortunately, when I was younger in college, I didn't do that. So I would say, continue what you're doing, continue the fight, and just get involved. I tell you, when I ran, and even now, getting phone calls, getting emails, and I'm an ally, and I'm going to push and fight. But it can't be just me. It even has to be the folks that you are not even aligned with. They need to hear your voice. And just as you mentioned, they can't just hear the oil and gas and the money that they're providing in their campaigns. They have to know that there are people that care about these issues and care about the environment.
What corporations can offer politicians is the money to buy votes, right? They offer financing for their elections. That's valuable. That's a pretty significant bribe if you're trying to be reelected. What we as grassroots movements can offer is straight up like a movement of voters, right? We're not offering you the money that would potentially let you buy a few people's votes if you put enough ad revenue out. We're saying, here are the people who care about this issue. If you rep this issue, if you do it right, and we won't stop holding you accountable, but if you do it right, these are people who might vote for you. So social movements, when they're widespread enough, and when everyone within that movement is like politically active, then I think that you can significantly challenge even the power of a private lobby, even the significant economic and financial power of a private lobby.